Today is a cold, snowy winter day and I'm really craving mijn oma's draadjesvlees. Draadje, which means thread or string, and vlees, which means meat, so the literal translation is stringy meat. And that is really a description of the texture. This was made by people who could not afford a big piece of tender beef, so they bought tough cuts that they would then cook for a long time until it became tender. It is kind of popular again, and people are making it with beer or wine or sherry. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the traditional version that my grandma made. Hi, I'm Toine and welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to this channel, I focus on cooking foods from my home country, the Netherlands, and some of its former colonies such as Indonesia. One of the ingredients my grandma used for draadjesvlees is ontbijtkoek. That is not something I can find at grocery stores here. So I have found a really great substitute that I'll show you later on. This is a dish that cooks for a long time, several hours, so if you want to eat this for dinner, make sure you start early enough. At the end of the recipe, I'll tell you how you can cut the time short by a little bit by making some minor adjustments. To make mijn oma's draadjesvlees, you will need 1 kilogram of brisket, 1 liter of beef stock, 2 large onions, 100 grams of tomato paste, 2 bay leaves, 40 grams of butter, 20 grams of oil, 2 teaspoons of speculaaskruiden, 1 teaspoon of vinegar, 2 tablespoons of honey, 2 slices of rye bread, and salt and pepper to taste. So using rye bread is my trick or substitution since I can't easily get my hands on ontbijtkoek. Ontbijtkoek is made with rye flour, so that's why I like using this. First thing I'm going to do is cut off all the crusts. So the ontbijtkoek, or in this case the rye bread, is there to thicken the sauce, if you will, but also impart flavor. So since rye bread doesn't come with all the delicious spices that is in ontbijtkoek, I'm adding speculaaskruiden and honey to my recipe. So if you can get your hands on ontbijtkoek, you don't have to use this, and you can also omit the honey and the speculaaskruiden. So now I'm just going to cut it in little pieces. So the reason I take the crust off is because it doesn't always completely dissolve in the sauce, but if your bread doesn't have a really thick crust, you can probably leave it on, but the one we get is rather crusty. Going to put this in a bowl, and then it's time to cut the brisket. I know I said that I was going to cut the brisket next, but since I'm using the same cutting board for cutting the vegetables, I'm going to cut my onions first. So first thing we do is take the root side off, then the other end. Cut it in half and take off the paper. So now I'm going to cut the onion lengthwise into 3 pieces and then 4 pieces in the other direction. So okay, and now we repeat it with the other onion. Gonna put this in a bowl, and then it's time to cut the brisket. My grandma uses what in the Netherlands we call suikerlappen, and the translation I found for that was brisket steaks. That is pieces of brisket already kind of cut into kind of chunks. Can't find those here. So we're going to look at the grain of the meat, and I'm going to cut in the same direction. And then I'm going to cut it in half once. So I like this size of chunk of brisket when I make this. And if there is a thick piece of fat, you can trim that off. So this piece also has fat on the bottom. Doesn't have to all be gone. Just take the really thick piece off. Because it is true that fat gives flavor, but too much just is not a good texture in your mouth when you're eating it. I'm going to clean my board, wash my hands, and then we're going to season the steak, or the brisket. Now it's time to season my brisket. Make sure that you take your brisket out of the fridge for at least 45 minutes to an hour before you do this, because I want to sear it in the pan a little bit, and if the brisket is too cold when it hits that pan, it kind of gets tough on the outside. So make sure that you let it temper or come to room temperature for at least 45 minutes to an hour. You probably can't see it, but all my ingredients are right next to my burner. I have a cast iron Dutch oven on my burner, medium high. It's been preheating for a little bit. So I'm going to add my oil and the butter. Now my grandma used to use chroma, which is a shortening. Originally it was a animal fat shortening, and now it is a vegetable-based shortening. I prefer to use butter and oil. We're going to let this sit until all the liquid is bubbled out of the butter. I'm using olive oil for this. You can use avocado oil or any vegetable oil that you prefer. What we're seeing right now is all the water content basically boiling out of this mixture. Now that the oil and the butter have stopped bubbling, I'm going to put 2 pieces of brisket in. You don't want to overcrowd the pot. Also, don't touch it. Let it sit for a few minutes to really give the meat a chance to get the Maillard reaction, the caramelization to happen, so it becomes nice and brown. If your pot is larger than this, of course, you can put more meat in there. Again, you want to make sure that you don't overcrowd it, because you really want to get that browning to happen. So clearly the brisket is nice and brown. So I'm going to turn it around. Okay, we're going to do the sides. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you are, please click the like and subscribe button. It will really help our channel. And if you want YouTube to notify you whenever we post a new video, click the bell. Earlier on, I told you that I would have some tricks that if you don't have the full 4 hours, but you still want to make this, how you can do that. So the best way to do it is by cutting the meat into smaller pieces, maybe little cubes. The final dish won't look like original Draadjesvlees because it's typically bigger pieces of meat, but the taste will still be the same. So I have one more side to sear. And then we'll take this out and sear the rest of the brisket. Okay, these 2 pieces of brisket have seared on all the sides. I'm putting them back on the same plate. I typically wouldn't do that, right? Put cooked meat on a plate with raw meat. But since it's all going to go back in the pan and cook for 4 hours, it isn't really a problem. So I'm going to keep browning the brisket, and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm done searing the last piece of brisket. So I'm going to put that on the plate, turn down the burner, and add my onions. As well as the tomato paste. Keep stirring this because we don't want to burn the tomato paste, and we want to keep cooking these onions until they turn glassy. So putting the tomato paste in with the onions is called onzuren, to remove some of the acid from the tomato paste, and it really also deepens the flavor. So this is a good trick, not just for Draadjesvlees, but anytime you make something with tomato paste. Now is a good time to preheat your oven to 95 degrees Celsius or 203 degrees Fahrenheit. If your oven can't go to 203, you can go to 205. You want it to be below 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit, the boiling point of water. Okay, so these onions are starting to look glassy. Let me see if I can find a little piece. Nice and shiny. Now I'm going to add the beef stock. Once you add it, use your pull ladle to scrape up any pieces of meat or onion or tomato paste that are at the bottom of the pan, the fond. And we are going to bring this to a boil. As you can see, the broth is starting to boil. So I'm going to add my speculaaskruiden. So weird, right, to add speculaaskruiden to a meat dish. My vinegar, the honey, my bay leaves, give it a good stir. You can definitely smell the speculaaskruiden when you add them, and it smells really good in the kitchen right now. So, okay, this is all combined. My secret ingredients, the rye bread. And now that we're at a full rolling boil, I'm going to turn this off. Nestle the brisket in there. Like that. Get the juices. Now I'm going to put the lid on here and put this in my 203 degrees oven for at least 3, but preferably 4 hours. Check it from time to time to make sure that it isn't cooking dry, because if too much of the liquid evaporates, you can add either more water or more beef stock. So I'll see you in 3 to 4 hours. Our draadjesvlees has been in the oven for about 5 hours. We got busy with something else, but you really can't overcook it. So let me take a piece of meat out. You may wonder why my oven mitt is laying on the edge of the pan. Something I do to just remind myself that this pot came out of a hot oven. So let me get some onions out of the sauce to plate on top of it. As you can see, it's very easy to pull the meat apart, and it is very stringy. So let's give it a try. Eet Smakelijk. Meat is nice and soft. You can taste that tomato paste and the onions even, and just a hint of those warming speculaaskruiden. Very good. Let me have a little bit more with some onion. Traditionally, this would be served with potatoes and red cabbage. But you can also eat it with a nice piece of crusty bread and add some of the liquid to it. Very good. I can't wait to finish this. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share it with your friends. If you have any questions or memories about draadjesvlees, you can leave them in the comments below. I'll put the written recipe on my website, toineskitchen.com, in both metric and imperial measurements, and you can follow me on social media as well. If you make draadjesvlees yourself, I would love it if you can take a photo and post it on Instagram with the hashtag ToinesKitchen. I will share it in my story and on my website. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.